IVM.
Hi, everybody. On behalf of the team at IVM Podcast, I have a request for you. We'd really appreciate it if you could go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and fill out our survey over there. It's going to take a few minutes to do, but it gives us some really interesting information that we can take to advertisers and brands about who's listening to the network. If you're comfortable giving us your email address, while you're filling out the survey, we'll enter you into a random drawing where we'll be sending out a bunch of IVM swag to some of our listeners. Last year, we sent out coffee mugs, and this year, we're hoping to send out much cooler stuff. That's ivmpodcast.com/survey. We really appreciate your help.
Welcome to Paperback by the Open Library Project. I am your co-host Satyajit, storyteller and entrepreneur. I'm hosting this podcast with my co-founder at the Open Library Project, Raachyeta Sharma.
Hi guys, my name is Raachyeta. I'm an ex-banker, social impact entrepreneur, podcaster, writer, and publisher. You can check out my deliberations on Instagram at neural_pathways and my articles for Thrive Global India. The Open Library Project is a curated library service which is offered to corporates on a subscription basis. The idea here is to create value, build a knowledge community, and encourage a growth mindset amongst our members.
Today is a very special episode for us because we don't have a guest today, but we are going to be introducing a technology platform, which is the PI Books platform, brought to you by Publishing Infinity, which is a company founded by Raachyeta and me. So Raachyeta, before we get into Publishing Infinity, I think maybe we should talk about the publishing industry and the state of how it exists in India and kind of why we sort of jumped into this publishing venture. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been, a great association with IVM Podcasts, where we've got to speak to, over 70 authors and publishers and people, who are fond of reading. And it becomes such a large database of, people from the industry that we've associated with, that I feel like it's given us the opportunity to provide exactly what, is needed in the industry today. And, talking to so many authors has given us clarity to what has been missing in the industry. Like I feel a common pain point for all authors has been that, the royalties are too low or the transparency in the distribution network is not, available. Mm-hmm. So it's nice that we could, have this database of people who are from the industry, know what the pain points of the industry are. And so not only do we know what the problem is, but we can work towards a solution. So I think that's something that we should be thankful to Paperback for, because it's really been the stepping stone for us.
It's been such an insightful journey over the last couple of years, just speaking to authors and understanding the real state of the system. And I think it gave us also the confidence to go ahead with this technology platform that it's a technology platform and we consider ourselves as new age publishers. So we are looking at bringing in some innovation into an industry that exists. So before we get into the innovation that we are bringing in, I think we should talk about the publishing industry in India and what kind of impact it's had so far. So, India has the 6th largest publishing industry in the world. And as far as English language books are concerned, we are the 2nd largest publisher in the whole world. Not only that, India has more than 19,000 registered publishers across various languages. And, these numbers are quite staggering because, you would associate publishing English language to be with the United Kingdom or maybe America or, some other countries. So what do you think about this, the state of the industry so far?
The state of the industry, according to me, I think, from whatever we've understood, has been pretty traditional. Mm-hmm. And it's been pretty, I wouldn't say regressive, but I don't see that, much change has happened in the industry over a long period of time. And now, when we are at this brink of a digital revolution, which of course has been accelerated, by COVID, because
Yes.
just being socially and physically disconnected now makes it even more difficult to, connect to audiences. So, I think, and the last change in the industry, which happened, organically, was the Kindle, which was also about a decade ago, after which, we've not really seen any change. But if you look at, the use of the internet and how much time people are spending online, like even if you just go on your phone and, you check the hours you're spending on each social media platform, it's a really alarmingly large number. So I think that, we should not be ignoring that now everybody has a phone and everybody is, using the phone not only to buy things online, but to keep themselves informed. And it's just a very largely used platform now. So I think that's very important, that we must understand that, this is the change that the industry also needs, because, the millennials are online. So if you want to target that audience, you have to be present online. So I think that was one of the major problems that I see in the industry that needs a little bit of a disruption, I would say.
Definitely. And I think before we get into it as well, what we should talk about is how the publishing industry currently works. So what happens is we found out with all our conversations with authors on paperback and off paperback as well. So here's how it works. You want to get a book published, you write your book, and if you're a first-time author, you probably have to go to an agent to get your manuscript read by, say, the publishing houses that you're targeting.
Right.
And what happens is, once you have the finished manuscript, you give it to the agent, and then they start passing it around these traditional publishing houses to see if there's any interest from them to publish the book. Now, the aim of publishing the book for any publishing house, a traditional publishing house, is that they would sell the book in bookstores throughout the country and across the world.
Right.
And that was the primary reason, why you would choose to go to a publisher who is well-known and probably global. And until very recently, there weren't many options if you wanted to bypass a publisher. Or, this was the only way you could get your book into bookstores all over the world.
Right.
And what we kind of found was that the time taken to get your manuscript read was close to a year, and usually for a first-time author. And the publishing process after that is another 6 months to 9 months. So by the time your book actually gets out, it's a good couple of years that have passed. Yeah, so we saw this as one of the biggest pain points in the publishing industry. And another one that we spoke about very interestingly with authors as well was that even once your book is in the bookstores, you kind of don't get sales reports of sales for 6 months or a year. So I found that astonishing, that you're not getting reports of how many books are sold, or, at the end of the year, there's 90% of the books coming back from, say, a particular bookstore. But you don't know for a year. So I found that time lag really, in the digital age, you should be able to provide real-time data, if not at least monthly or quarterly data on sales.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for authors, what has happened is it's not only lack of transparency in terms of distribution and sales, but it's also the content that they come up with. A lot of times, especially non-fiction content, is so relevant and pertinent to the market currently. So that content also gets obsolete over time. By the time the book is, reviewed and published, it's been a year, and maybe content is not up to date or relevant after a year, because that's how fast our markets are changing. So, not only is there like lack of transparency, but I think even content wise and inventory, there is so much complex inventory, logistical issues. And like an interesting fact that I would like to, tell our audience would be that one tree is, used to print 2,000 books, which is almost one print run. And if those books are not sold and that inventory is just lying in warehouses, it's not even being put to use, right? So we're cutting down trees. We're moving towards our next pandemic, which is a climatic, and environmental issues, basically. So I think that, that's a huge problem that we're just missing of so much, inventory just lying and being, it's just being wasted, I would say. So I think that, this is another huge issue that the industry faces, is lots of inventory, warehousing, logistical issues. And on the other hand, it's, of course, for an author, I think, lack of transparency. There is no, if it is my work and I've taken years to write it and it's published, I at least deserve a fair, participation in terms of royalty and just being recognized for my work. So
the crux of the problem is like the royalty figures exist in the industry. So can you enlighten us on like what is a traditional royalty structure when you publish through a traditional publisher?
So, we've I'm sure but we should definitely get...
For listeners.
Yeah, for our listeners, we've gone through so many publishers now. We've not only had a lot of conversations, but we've also realized that for, a really well-to-do author, and when I say an author who's doing well, would be someone who's had 2-3 bestsellers, that's when the royalty is really even bargainable by them, in the sense that's when they have a say about the royalty. And the royalty, even in those cases, would be up to a maximum of 10%.
10% of the MRP? This is 10% of the net profit, actually.
The 10%, it's 10% of the net profit. And that is, I think, nothing for my life's work.
Let's just break that down for a second. And what does 10% net profit mean? In terms of the publishing industry, is that, when you sell a book in a bookstore, the bookstore takes 50% of the MRP, the maximum retail price of that book, as their commission for selling the book in that bookstore.
Right.
And after that, say you sell the book for 100 rupees. So you have 50 rupees left in the hands of the publisher. And the author is entitled to 10% of the net profit, which is that 50 rupees, minus any additional expenses that they may have occurred on the book in terms of marketing, in terms of promotion. So after expenses, say there's another 10 rupees, 15 rupees spent on expenses, and that leaves us with 35 rupees. And if you get 10% of that, that's 3.5 rupees of royalty on a book that costs 100 rupees. So that's the current structure of the publishing industry when you sell a book in a bookstore. Am I right?
Absolutely. And you're selling, books through publishers who are not originally Indian publishers. They're usually, publishers who've come to India and set up here now. Right. But it's basically, international publishers that are basically dominating Indian markets. And it's not only the publishers, but it's also the distributors. It's a very monopolized market. So, which is why there's not much say for an author in it, I guess.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And, the last point I want to just touch upon before we get into Publishing Infinity itself and what we kind of offer other authors in terms of services and how we have addressed these problems is that no one's actually buying books in bookstores anymore. So, even if you love physical books, which a lot of people do, in fact, every guest, I don't remember a guest who's come on Paperback and said, I prefer any book to a physical book.
And that's all right? Like if I like chocolates, then I can like Mars and I can like After Eight, but I can consume knowledge as well in different ways. Like I'm sure, a lot of people love physical books, but that does not mean that they would not read a book online.
Definitely. The point I was trying to make is that even though you're looking at the physical book in a bookstore, you're going to order from the regular price in the bookstore. So in the last decade or so, like bookstores have seen a tremendous decline in terms of what their clientele is buying. And so now you may see your favorite bookstore chain be 50% books and 50% merchandising, because that's what's actually selling, and they need to kind of change their business model to incorporate these other forms of revenue for their business. So, it's a completely new market that we are looking at. A lot of the consumers are online first and are comfortable with making purchases online, especially when you offer them a better price for the same product. So
now even more so, I think after COVID, everyone prefers to, order everything online, not only
in the
books.
pandemic, I think we've just seen a sharp pivot into the digital trends that were existing in the world, but I think the adoption has just been accelerated by a few years because of necessity, because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so before we take a break, I'm just going to give you guys a small introduction to Publishing Infinity. And once we're back from the break, we'll discuss what the benefits that we offer as a new age publishing house to new authors or existing authors are. So Publishing Infinity and its proprietary PI Books platform is a new age publishing house where you can publish dynamic and interactive ebooks called PI Books. A dynamic ebook is a digital book where you can incorporate all forms of digital content, be it an audio clip, a video, a social media post, podcast links, discount coupons, product links. If it exists digitally, you can add it into your PI book. And on that note, we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back after this.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, don't you think it's about time you started? We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I wanted to kind of just give a quick reminder to everybody. As I mentioned up top, we are doing our annual listener survey right now. If you could please go and take a couple of minutes out of your day and fill it out, we would really, really appreciate it. It's ivmpodcast.com/survey. If you're comfortable giving us your email address, we'll enter you into a random drawing, and we're going to be sending out swag to a bunch of randomly selected listeners. So do definitely get on board that train. Let me tell you a little bit about what we did on the network this week. We launched a new show called Zindagi Diaries with Ragini Kumar. Many of you might have seen Ragini on television during the IPL. She's a presenter, but she's showing a different side of herself over here with a poetry podcast. Give it a shot, give it a listen. Let me know what you all think. Vishal Gondal is back this week after a while. He's been on an extended break, but he has Rahul Narvekar for the first episode. Really interesting conversation. Do check it out. Raji Samant joins Gauri Devidayal on This Round Is On Me, the two talk about the wine business and what's going on there. We had a number of conversations about the Farmers Bill and the surrounding agitation this week on the network as well. Maruk Inayat had a great episode on the note. Pulia Bazi did a deep dive into the issues around this. And on Siders, we have our typical, fun conversation about this stuff with a little bit of a seriousness, a little bit of fun. Do check that out on Cock and Bull on Thursday last week. Akash Mehta joined us for that episode. And with that, let me get you back to your show.
Welcome back, guys. We're discussing our new age technology platform, a new age publishing platform, Publishing Infinity, which is co-founded by Raachyeta and me. So, Raachyeta, tell our listeners a little more about Publishing Infinity and this PI Books platform. Why is it important? Why did we decide to jump into this other than the reasons we mentioned in the first half?
Yeah, so as we, discussed earlier, we've had conversations with a lot of authors and a lot of readers. So not only did we get to know about the pain points in the industry, but we also realized that the market is moving towards more digital platforms. Another really exciting thing that we got to know, which I would love to tell our audience, was that we have realized that people now want to consume information in more than just, text and image formats. And this industry is so many years old, but we've, of course, made progress, but we're still in an age where, people are consuming information online, they're doing courses online. Video content is, being pushed so much that I think that a book should have much more than text and images. And that's largely what a lot of people who we have had conversations with have told us, that, they would like to see more kind of interactive content in a book. And especially if it's digital, right? Because you can add so much to a book. Another thing is that, when I speak to readers and I ask them that after you've read a book, what is it that you do? And a very common answer has been that, as soon as I finish a book and if I really really liked the book, then I will, one, recommend it to people. Two, I, possibly Google the author, or I'll go and, listen to his TED talk. I'll listen to videos about the topic, which he's, spoken about more in detail on other platforms. And even for news, we've seen a huge shift. People have moved from newspapers to now consuming even news on social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram. Like if you ask somebody that, you read about the COVID vaccine, where did you read about it? And they'll tell you, I got this information on Instagram or Facebook. So it's not only just staying up to date with what's going on in your friends' lives, but generally what's going around in the world. Everybody is now using these platforms to consume information. So just restricting information to text and images is, I think, what is making books boring for people. And that's the change that we need to see, because if people are on Instagram, why are they on Instagram? Because they like the way the information is given to them on Instagram. So that's what we've really largely concurred to with a lot of people, that this is what the industry needs, a change to more interactive platforms. And that's when, of course, we decided that we should have a digital platform which can incorporate more about the author. And it should be a community experience, right? You should be able to connect to the author. You should be able to know more about the author in his book. And he should be able to communicate to his audiences in more formats. So I think it's a two-way street here.
Yeah, definitely. And, coming from the author's point of view, what we add to authors. So earlier, we did not have many tools of creation available to us. Or even if we did have them, they were very expensive to explore these other formats of creation. For example, audio, video. We never could probably record ourselves so easily until everyone got an Android or iPhone in their hand, which has amazing cameras. And in addition to that, we have this amazing data which connects us all over the world, the internet. And the way that data flows now across the world, it's so seamless. I mean, you can talk to someone who's sitting across the world on a video chat with just a press of a button. And these are the tools available to creators today. So to just restrict them to saying that, you can only use text and images is kind of beyond the point, because you want to let creators express themselves in the forms that is best suited to that expression. So if someone is capable of making a video to express a point of view on something, I think it's valid to, use a video instead of seeing the video and converting it into text for the sake of a physical book or a regular book, right? So,
absolutely. And now if you look at it, the education system almost came to a halt, right? Because of the pandemic, because we are still using the ancient ways of teaching, and we did not incorporate any videos or any other format where students could have, consumed information sitting at home. And just having and, organizing classes at home has been crazy. And you're now asking a, 7-year-old child that you have to switch today and you have to start, learning online. It's so difficult for children to adapt to that kind of change. So I think that instead of just, coming to a standstill, it's just a sensible decision to move with the markets, which are moving to interactive platforms. So that's definitely one of the major issues I saw during the pandemic. And of course, I think, when you're digital, there is zero loss in sales because you are not selling, books physically. So you're not building up inventory, which is, then not going to be unsold stock. And then you don't have any warehousing issues. You don't have logistical issues. It brings the costs down, so you can bring content out more cheaper. You don't have to forecast sales because it's all being done in real time online. And, various pluses for publishers, in fact. And for authors, I see it as, a lot of transparency because you get, real-time sales figures online. You can get royalty much quicker because you're not waiting for distributors for six months to give the royalty to the publisher who's then paying it to the author. So it quickens the process. Like almost instantly you're solving 10 problems in the industry.
Definitely. So let's speak about how Publishing Infinity is addressing the problems that we spoke about in the first half, starting with the crux of the matter, which is royalty.
Right.
So what is our royalty structure?
So the good bit for, I think, what we are trying to achieve here is being fair and being mindful about the value of an author. And I think that's what we're trying to achieve with our royalty structure. So it is a scaling royalty structure where we are trying to give the author as much benefit for the books that they sell. So the more books you sell, the higher your royalty goes instead of going lower. And we are in fact starting at a much higher royalty percentage, which is 30%.
30% royalty, that's ridiculous for this industry. I just heard in the first half and what we discussed, it's, wow, we seem to be very generous.
We should be. I think it's very well deserved for this for the authors because they put in a lot of effort. It is somebody's 2, 3, 10 years. We've heard the crazy stories that people have spent years writing a book, and I think that they deserve to be valued and they deserve to be recognized and be paid. I don't think it's generous. I think it's absolutely what they deserve. So yeah, and the scaling royalty structure goes up to crazy amounts of royalty, up to 70% to an author. So
70% royalty. As you sell more books, you can have 70% royalty on those sales, right? Wow.
Yeah, so I think that's one way that we would be able to be fair to the authors. The other thing, of course, because it's a digital platform, you get monthly sales figures, you get monthly royalty payments. And another biggest, I think, pain point that we are dealing with would be that we convert your ready manuscript into our PI book platform. With your videos and other interactive content, maybe, podcast links and product codes, etc. And all of this can be accomplished in a 30-day time frame.
Exactly.
So we are saving you, I think, 11 months of time. So I think that's a huge plus because information is very, very, quickly changing nowadays. And I think that
if you want to stay relevant, your manuscript can't take 2 years to come out. Right? So
absolutely, yeah.
That's where we are committing to getting the work out there as soon as possible. I think one of the other major pain points that we are addressing for authors is that, usually when you sell a book, maybe it an ebook on Amazon or a physical book on Amazon or in a bookstore, you kind of don't know who your customer is because once they bought the book, they read it, they can probably connect with you on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram if they choose to do so. What we are kind of offering through our technology platform is the ability for authors to connect directly with their readers and probably set up some community activities around that through the Publishing Infinity tech platform. So I think it will help authors build their audience, not just for the book that they are selling currently, but for their future titles as well. They'll be able to reach out to these readers who, if you didn't go through us and our technology platform, this would not be an option. So I think that's one of the major pain points also that authors always discuss with us, and we this is the solution we kind of are proposing for them through our tech platform, publishing to the PI Books platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just in short, I think what it does is it's eliminating the problems of physical books and inventory and stocking and all of those in the physical book section. And for authors, I think it's just more value to the authors, which I think was long overdue. So hoping that we can create a community which is, benefiting publishers, it's benefiting authors, and it's benefiting just the reading community in general, which is why we're not restricting books published by us. We, in fact, are calling all publishers. It's like a shout out to all publishers that, yes, you do come onto this platform and, yeah, absolutely convert your books, your existing books into this platform, add more interactive content to your books and sell it on our platform. We want to be, able to make this difference in the industry and not individually as publishers. So we will be more than happy to provide this platform to all publishers to move towards a more interactive book format.
Great. And, to all our listeners, you'll have been listening to Paperback for over 2 years now. So thanks a lot for keeping the show going. It's the love from you guys and the feedback that we get from our guests as well as our audience that keeps us going. And this is a call out to anyone who feels like they are a creator, a future author. You shouldn't look at being an author just in terms of a physical book. And we are here to help you make that journey from a potential author to a published author. So this is a shout out to everyone, whoever thinks that they have something to share with the world. We'll be sharing a Google form link as well with this podcast so that you guys can reach out to us and we can see how we can help you get your work out there.
Great. So thank you so much for listening to this. And we would really, really be looking forward to more ideas from your end. And before we go, of course, because we love recommending so many books, we would like to recommend a book each that we, read through the lockdown and which highly influenced us. I wanted to actually recommend a book called The Tribe of Mentors, which is basically short life advice from the best people in the world. This is a book by Tim Ferriss, who I hugely admire. And, I love his podcasts and his style of communication. And he has basically done interviews with a lot of people across various industries. So there are, authors and there are actors and influencers and just everybody and anybody that you can think of. And he's collated information about, great life advice that not only starting, startups and like budding entrepreneurs could use, but it's advice that you could come back to anytime for anything in your life. So I think it's a beautiful book. And he has touched upon some really good topics. Like he has asked, firstly, quotes that really stand out for these people. What do they do when they feel overwhelmed or unfocused? How have they learned to say no to people, in business? Because that's one thing every entrepreneur struggles with, is how do I politely say no for something which is not going to be beneficial for my business. So I think that's great information. And each of these lovely people are recommending books as well. So it's great. You get a stock of about 150, 200 books that you can read after you've read this book. So it's great. And the most beautiful bit is that they talk about life advice to young generation. And they talk about failures, the favorite failure that you have, which is very, very interesting because you get to know how real, the lives of these people has been also, how many struggles they've gone through and how they use those failures to bounce back, which I think all of us are feeling right now, a bit of a failure in some aspect of our lives because of this pandemic and because things didn't go the way we planned it for 2020. So I think it really, brought me out of a lot of procrastination that I was going through. So I would really recommend people to pick up this book, reflect on, one or two stories at a time. And you can always come back to the book. That's great because, it's like 2 pages each by every person mentioned in the book. So it's something you can pick up every night for an hour or two. So brilliant book. I would definitely recommend everyone to read it.
Fantastic recommendation. Tim Ferriss is one of the best authors of our times, especially when it comes to even his podcast is fantastic, in fact. The book that I would like to recommend to our audience and especially to budding authors or budding PI Books authors is an audio book called The Book by Amaranth Borsuk. Now, the reason I recommend this book, and I've listened to the whole book, and it kind of changed my perspective on a lot of things or reinforced what I believed in terms of what we require in terms of reading platforms. So this book basically speaks about the journey of communication from the beginning of time, and how the book has in the past not only been the content of the book, but also the medium of delivering the information. Now, when we've moved into the digital age, there's been a separation of that, where the content can also be present in an ebook format. Then ebook then becomes a digital format of book. So similarly, it kind of speaks about how information has been communicated in the past and why it was communicated in that way. And the restrictions of our past did not allow us to communicate in any other way, especially long format thoughts and, especially industry specific or technical thoughts. That was the only way to economically and efficiently do that, was to publish a book, physical book, which was images and mostly text and some images. Now, in the digital times that we live in, everyone has a mobile phone and access to a steady data connection. So we need to evolve our definition of the book as well as the form of communication as well. So if you're on the brink of, if you're thinking about getting your work out there published as an author, I think this is one book you should consider reading before. It will give you a different perspective on how you can communicate. And once you've read the book, you can get in touch with us and we'll discuss how to publish your PI book. Thank you to all our audience for listening to this very special episode of Paperback with Publishing Infinity. We hope we'll be sharing the links of our technology platform as well. It will be live pretty soon, and you'll be able to check out the books that we're publishing and reach out to us in case you want to publish PI books in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Big thank you to all our listeners. You can follow the Open Library Project on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook for latest updates on our events, and stay tuned for the next Paperback podcast on IVM Podcasts. Happy reading. You can follow IVM Podcast on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at IVM Podcasts. Listen to Paperback on the IVM Podcast app, website or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Remember the last vacation you took? What about the one you took 3 years ago? Okay, how much do you really remember? It's a question I've asked myself often over a decade of traveling the world. Hey, I'm Utsav and I do not travel the world for a living. I have a full-time job and responsibilities, but I have made traveling the world a priority. Priority enough that I negotiate extra leave in my job contracts, obsessively track my frequent flyer miles, and I'm willing to take off at the sight of a cheap ticket. Yes, I am cheap. I have lived and worked in 3 countries. I understand human behavior for a living. And these experiences have given me unique insights into places, people, and culture. With over a decade of travel behind me, I increasingly realized one thing: that we cannot see everything. So whatever we see, we must see deeply. Because as the film of memory decays, the imprints which will stand the test of time are the ones felt by the immersion of the senses, not by fleeting encounters with them. Postcards from Nowhere is an immersion into the world of slow travel, one story at a time. Tune in every Thursday on the IVM Podcasts app, website, or wherever you get your podcast from.
Are you constantly seeking happiness? Wondering how to make the most of every day? How not to let your inhibitions stop you from achieving your goals? It's now time to get your A game on. It's time to unlock your true potential. Tune in to the Empowering series with me, Zarina Poonawalla, to feel empowered in all genres of life. From behavioral skills to management skills, from health to relationships, from mental well-being to emotional well-being, and of course your finances. I've got you covered. With these tips and tricks from me, Zarina, and true life stories from my amazing guests, you're bound to bring your purest to the table. Tune in to the Empowering series with Zarina Poonawalla every Thursday on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you listen to podcasts.